Good afternoon, and thanks for the very, very warm welcome today. I'm really excited talking after this inspiring presentation about the new iX3. I really have to admit I would love to drive that car. But anyway, now let's focus on just a snapshot on what we can do with data. As I stated, I'm very passionate about this topic. It's part of my professional DNA for more than 25 years. And as laid out by Gunther Scherf this morning, the foundation very often really starts here in Germany. It's similar to me. I started my research at DAISY in Hamburg and the Cognitive Science Lab in Hamburg when we did this armament project on cognitive science together with Simmeth and Egon Bahr late in the 80s. Why this is relevant? The models we used at that time are to a certain degree still valid, particularly the mathematical ones. After I led, you probably know, IBM Watson, AI software business in China for several years, I got the honor to take up this fine role of leading SAS Institute here in the German-speaking zone. And that's really part of my passion as well, because I love to think about how we can use data in an ethical, meaningful, and responsible manner. But imagine you have a very brilliant idea, a medical app you like to develop that can save children's life, or a model you have in mind that early can detect the next financial crisis, or you have the right idea how you may forecast a natural disaster like the one we unfortunately had at the Ahrtal. Or you think of a way to prevent or get an early alert on the next terrorist attack in our country. But there is a problem quite often. There is not enough data, or you may have the wrong data, or not reliable one. Welcome, this is the reality we have today. Data protection, bias, data scarcity, these are all very relevant areas to be taken care. But more often these days, and we heard that several times, you would like to ask an AI for help. But this time, quite frankly, AI needs our help. Because the AI needs proper data to be trained and work properly. But where do we get this data quite often from? There are boundaries we are surrounded, such as privacy. We heard about GDPR this morning, laws on data exchange, and we have social boundaries well accepted in our society. An environment very unique in Europe compared to the US, China, or anywhere else in the world. I think that's an environment very well and worthwhile to be protected. So how do we get the data in such an environment that is reliable, compliant, and ethical integer? I know this sounds like a dead end, but it's not really. I think it's really where we can start now. And this is what I would call, this is the world of synthetic data, the topic I'd like to talk about today. But before we do that, let me, and this is not a real marketing, share with you, share with you our company and give you a legitimate reason why we think we have something to say about that topic. SAS, we are really a data analytics company at our core. What not many knows, we are the largest privately held software company in the world for nearly 50 years. More than 96% of the Fortune 100, with thousands of customers in more than 140 countries, especially in the financial services, but also in the public sector, use our solutions. We serve, as I stated, more than 1,200 public customers globally, and we are one of the few companies that have our own data ethics practice. And this was, or is led actually, by a former advisor to the Democratic government in the US quite a few years ago. This is a key differentiator to many other companies that are currently under heavy scrutiny in the media and the politics. At SAS, I think we live and breathe for decades how to use this data and work with this data. Our mission at SAS is very simple: to provide knowledge in the moment that matters. So let's drill deeper into this. Synthetic data is clearly algorithmically generated data that simulates real data without copying. We can say it's like a digital twin, real enough for AI on the one side, anonymous enough for data protection. Simulated data is primarily based on hypothetical scenarios or simplified models, often generic and do not really represent the real world. As a physicist, I got used to work on models like Newton on the classical mechanics. But on this conference today, it's very interesting. We have quantum computing at the other slot here, but try to use a classical mechanical model in the quantum world. You will fail definitely. So there are limitations to simulated data on this one. Harmonized data comes from data sets where personal identifiers are taken off. However, there is always a residual risk to identify the origin. Synthetic data, on the other hand, is completely anew. It's based on the statistical properties of real data, but contains no information about real individuals. This makes it particularly secure, versatile, and very unique. It enables progress without compromising privacy. The data is immediately on hand. That makes it very flexible and cost-effective. And this is crucial. It's ideal for AI model training, especially on rare events or when you are treating and dealing with underrepresented groups. This sounds pretty cool, I think. And this is also what the market thinks. A recent survey by Gartner shared that 75% of companies want to use that because they are scared on data security and how this is used in their companies. 80% show a strong interest in using this synthetic data to address privacy issues. 75% of the companies plan to use generative AI to generate synthetic data, compared to less than 5% in 23. So, why do we need this? Model-based bias due to unbalanced data is a crucial situation we are facing quite often. If a new wind turbine is installed in a wind farm, if you want to optimize the performance and build a future-proof anomaly detection system, operators need a robust model of its normal operating behavior. However, they only have access to the first few hours of sensor data from its initial commissioning. This short time frame doesn't capture the full span of data that you really need around wind speeds, times, seasons, etc. Testing rare events is also a very crucial topic. We all use credit card transactions. 99.9% of all credit card transactions are safe. and legitimate. Only 0.1% are fraudulent. A machine learning model will definitely fail if it's used catching fraud. How do we deal with that? Or you have restricted data use. Sensitive or personal data is a very common thing we are facing when we are looking into a hospital, where there is a rich data set on patient records that is used for cancer, containing demographics, generic markers, treatment history, etc., etc. Researchers at university would love to use that data, in particular the raw data, but for privacy reasons, this data quite often is anonymized. And the last, sometimes you just have insufficient data. If the data set is too small or incomplete, think about a flash crash. You have shares in the trade, a sudden severe drop in price. These events are incredibly rare and unpredictable. So waiting for one to happen is definitely not a viable testing strategy. So how do we do that? Sorry, I have to close this one. Before we dive into this, it's relevant that we understand that how we at SAS create this data. The process begins with the real data set. For example, a customer transaction, a patient record, and a sensor data. From that data, and this data is only be used for learning purposes and doing statistic analysis. Then we use advanced AI technologies like chance, variational autoencoders, VAEs, or machine learning on unbalanced data smoothies to understand the structure, relationship, and distribution within the data. Then, based on that, we generate entirely new data points, so-called synthetic data, and thereafter we validate and audit either by machine to machine, machine to human, in both directions. So you can prove to regulators and stakeholders that the data is correct, is safe, and compliant. This is not a black box approach. And thereafter, you can deploy and use this data. This makes it very unique to work in underrepresented situations, etc. Let me look into a few examples. Nationwide Building Society in the UK wanted to make its lending fairer and more inclusive. Analysis showed that women with the same creditworthiness systematically received a worse credit rating, a classic example of algorithmic bias. A real-world example, imagine an immigrant family from Armenia with a very uncommon and foreign family name, a large family, few daughters, and an unsteady life with changing jobs compared to when I grew up. Would they easily get a large credit in Germany with those information you entered into the database? No, but they should. How else would you be able to keep up with the Kardashians? They are definitely creditworthy. With synthetic data, this problem could be specifically addressed. Using datasets that better represent underrepresented, this would not happen. We increased, by the way, in that case, the model accuracy by nearly 30%. And the rejection rate for such groups dropped significantly. This project is now considered the best practice for responsible AI in the financial sector. From science on oceanographic modeling. FATCOM wanted to protect North Atlantic whales from ships collision. The challenge, there were only 40,000 data points, sightings, too few to build a robust model. We generated data based on these real movement patterns, water temperature, currents, historical sightings, And we could increase the 40,000 to more than 500,000 points. This made it possible to develop a reliable model that helped us to predict patterns that the ships early alerted to bypass whales. Today, the system is used amongst and in front of several US East Coast borders and saves whales every day. Another interesting example we all know. We all probably, when we have kids, know what Fortnite is. Teenager played it very nicely. But now here is the twist. We partnered with the creators of Fortnite, Epic Games, to bring their gaming technology into the industrial world. Together, we developed a photorealistic digital twin that simulated the real factory environment. And one of the first companies to use this information is Georgia-Pacific. In their production facilities, synthetic data is used to simulate rare events, optimize the logistics, and train the models, all in a virtual environment run by our solutions. This means they can test and improve operations without disrupting the production. The result: faster model development, deployment, fewer downtimes, and definitely smarter decisions. And the core to this success are synthetic data. So let me leave you with a few questions. With what we heard today, isn't this a great momentum to bring many more of these brilliant ideas to life? With synthetic data, this is exactly what we can do, without compromising privacy, ethics, or the security topic. Think about the natural disasters like the flood in the R-value I mentioned. Why not taking this model, building other data, and using it at the Rhine River or at the Leiblach, which is a very small river. I grew up near the Lake of Constance that had a severe disaster also a few years ago. We could help predicting these events. Or terrorist attacks. It's so often that we have to have an early alert. We're not saying we can prevent those, but we can have a much better prediction on those and the situations. The same I just mentioned on turbulences in the financial markets. Or think about the uncontrolled movements of refugees. On the one side, predicting where they go to help and rescue, and on the other side, to help our services to predict where they are coming. And last, definitely the geopolitical tensions and conflicts. These models, and this comes back to how I started my professional journey, is really providing models that can be used to predict escalations and situations even in geopolitical tensions. I personally do believe that this is not just a headline. These are all moments that matter. And with synthetic data, we can train the AI to understand them actually before they happen. That's the magic. I think that's really cool. And that's the magic I wanted to share with you today. It's not just a technology. It's a new way of thinking, a new way of preparing, and a new way of protecting what really matters most. I'm more than happy to talk to you later on after my presentation, either directly here at the conference, at the event, or we can exchange on LinkedIn. simply via email, or you talk to my team here at the event. I really want to appreciate the time that you spent with me, sharing with you this snapshot on our journey towards AI. Thank you for your time.